Welcome back, Wargamers. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. It's finals week and I'm a teacher, so I haven't made any progress on any of my terrain. I didn't think I'd be putting out a video, but lo and behold, what appears on my doorstep but my Dark Souls, the board game, the Kickstarter that I backed over a year ago, finally came in, and I thought, well, I'll do an unboxing. This is my first unboxing, so it will likely be a train wreck, but hopefully, if you're interested in this game, you'll at least get something out of it. I don't play very many video games now, but when I did, Dark Souls was by far my favorite. I love the aesthetic of it. It's kind of this dark, gritty, but somewhat realistic world. It's challenging. There's a lot of strategy involved. It's not just a mindless action game. So when I found out there's a board game, I had to back it. And it appears to me that this game is going to be a great gateway game. If you watch Tabletop Minions, you always hear Adam talking about how if you want to get people into wargaming, don't just hand them a complex wargame and expect them to jump in. Break them into it with board games with some wargame aspects. Board games that deal with positioning and kind of deeper strategy and attacks and defense and saves and things like that. And that's what this game has pretty complex AI. You're also kind of working cooperatively, like Zombicide and some other recent games that come out do, and that's a great way to bring someone into wargaming without going against them and smashing them, because no matter how much you try to hold your punches, you're always going to beat them down on their first game. So I think this game will be a great way to get some guys that I know that are into board games, maybe get them into wargaming, get them into some of the more complex games that I play. So when I do this unboxing, I'm going to focus more on the miniatures. I love my miniatures, not so much on the rules or what the boards look like or the cards. I'm looking at the miniatures and I'm going to kind of compare them to GW and some of the historical miniatures I have and see the quality of these things. So I'm going to skip ahead from about my 5 minutes of trying to get off this shrink wrap, which was very embarrassing, and let's just open this thing up. There we go, and of course, Dark Souls, so we have the "You Died" flashing up there. I imagine I'm going to be dying a lot in this board game if it's anything like the video game. And so you can see it's very well packaged, and we have here all the cards, which I think are all the equipments, and each monster kind of has its own AI driven by cards, so they're all nicely wrapped there. I'm not going to look at them. I want to get to the meat of this. I want to get to my big old miniatures here, and I'm guessing that in here is my bigger boss models. So what's cool about this game is the bosses have really complex AIs that you can memorize to kind of outwit them. Pretty cool concept. And these guys are massive. These guys are some big freaking miniatures. So if we look at this is the Dancer of the Boreal Valley. The quality of this is pretty impressive. It's the hard plastic that you find in most GW models, and the detail there is pretty exquisite. And if we look at this Chaos Warrior, it's a good size. This is a pretty big miniature. So I was worried when I was looking at the demo games that when they produced this thing, they'd scale down the size of the bosses. Does not look like they've done so. So these are really nice looking miniatures. And as I'm looking around it, I don't see any mold lines. So these are like prime ready if you want to paint these right out of the box. No mold lines, no preparation, you don't even have to get out your plastic cement. It's all together. So that is pretty impressive work by Steam Forged here. I'm just going to look at a few of these other models. Here's our gargoyle, bell tower gargoyle, and again, just very fine detail on these. I actually was not expecting them to come out looking this good, to be honest. I don't think it's quite up to GW standards. Obviously, they kind of lead the pack, but it's pretty freaking close. Like on this gargoyle's shield is some just amazing small little details. So that's pretty impressive, I gotta say. And here's for just scale. Here's a Bellacore, another GW model, dwarfs them. So for 80 pounds, you're getting like 6 massive monsters and then 20 smaller miniatures. It's actually a pretty good deal. Well, hopefully the rest of the miniatures hold up to this quality of the bosses. And here's our Smo, and I think that the board game really keeps pretty well to the aesthetic of Dark Souls. I mean, they keep the proportions pretty well. If you're looking, you're like, man, some of the armor is like dwarfing their head. Yeah, that's Dark Souls. And here we have our Outrider Knight. Oh, there's our first mold line. So out of the 3 models, we have 1 mold line to clean up. You know, I'll take it. So still, this detail, very impressive. People are giving GW a run for their money these days. It's good to see. And this, you know, this is more of a board game. So Steam Forged doing a great job. And here is our Angel Knight, which I believe is a mini boss model. This is one of the smaller of the models, but still, there's a lot of detail in there. It's nice hard plastic. The weapons aren't bending. I'm pretty impressed. Pretty impressed overall. You know, sometimes with these more board games, miniatures games, they use the really cheap soft plastic. Glad to see that's not the case. And here's our kind of last, I believe this is also a mini boss, our Titanite Demon. And I'm pretty impressed by the heft on these things. They are solid plastic. I don't think you're going to worry about these things breaking anytime soon. And what's also impressive is they're in one piece. I mean, that makes the whole painting process a lot easier with very few mold lines. Very impressed. All right, so those are all of our boss models. Now I'm guessing in this other box here are going to be all of our smaller models, all of our kind of foot soldiers and player character models. So let's get these guys out, take a look at them. And here we go. There's a bunch of them in here. All right. So, well, hopefully these will keep up to the kind of same quality. Here's actually another of our boss models. There's Ornstein. Again, with some pretty impressive detail around on his armor. One of the cooler looking characters from Dark Souls, without a doubt. So that's nice. I was a little worried. I saw Smo in there. I didn't see Ornstein, but no worries. He's just in with the chaff, I guess. All right, so there we go. And maybe a little nick here or there that I'll have to fill in with some sculpting putty before I paint it. All right, and here are kind of the undead models. Now, looking at these, the detail is a little softer. There's not as much detail on these kind of run-of-the-mill soldier figures. And the plastic actually seems to be a little bit different. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it seems to be kind of some of the more flimsy plastic you see with like Reaper bones. I don't know, I'll take a look at a few more miniatures. Maybe it's just this one. Let's see here. We have our Silver Knight Archer. Still pretty impressive detail on these, but I do think they are using a different plastic, not quite the same hard plastic that you found with the boss models. Still pretty impressive for a board game, but the detail is definitely a little bit less for these smaller models. Here is our giant guards, who are a little smaller than I would imagine, but still they hold pretty true to what they looked like in the game. Now I am interested to see what the player character models look like. Let's see, I think they're down here on the bottom. Let's see if I can get some of those guys out. We have more Silver Knights and Dark Knights. Here we have, I think, a zombie, another undead character. And these seem to be more like realistic historical scale. Like if you know GW, if you know Warhammer, they're not really the heroic scale of big bulky arms and big bulky head and exaggerated armor. You know, if here's a GW model, they definitely appear more slender, more realistic, which I think fits more with the Dark Souls aesthetic. I'm kind of glad they went with a more realistic scale instead of going heroic. And even though it is this soft plastic, you can kind of see that sword of the undead bending a little bit. They actually did pack a fair amount of detail. I gotta say, I am just a tiny bit disappointed. Here you can really see that kind of flimsier plastic bending on our Herald character here. I am a little disappointed that they weren't able to use the higher quality hard plastic for all of the models. I get it though. It's expensive for the price. They have packed so much stuff in there. So, very tiny disappointed. There's still quite a bit of detail even on the soft plastic, so it's not going to ruin it for me. I would have been really surprised if they were able to pack in as much detail as they did on the Boss models on all the models. It would have been just too crazy expensive, I think. For 120 bucks, you're getting those huge models and all these smaller ones. It's a great deal. But yes, just know when you're getting this, some of the models are going to be more on the lines of kind of Reaper bones, especially these player character models. You can see the kind of bending of the sword. So I still think they'll paint up just fine. I've painted Reaper bones in the past, and you can still get some pretty decent results here. Just showing you kind of differences in the plastic. This guy is solid, whereas this guy not so much. And especially you'll notice a little bit less detail in the face of these smaller models. But I think I'll be able to paint them up and they'll look just fine in the end. Here is our Marauder, I believe, our Marauder model. I do like, they are very dynamic poses on these character models, so I think they'll paint up just fine. I am overall very impressed. I am very impressed. Don't let the last few minutes fool you into thinking that all of a sudden I've changed my mind on this. I'm very glad I backed this. I think these companies are, again, really pushing the envelope, forcing some good competition in the miniatures market here. Here's our Knight model. I really like this pose. It's a really awesome pose. So overall, the miniatures are pretty impressive, especially for a board game. I think it's up there with some of the best in the business. Here's our instruction pamphlet, some dice and markers, and the floor tiles or dungeon tiles that you'll be playing your kind of mini campaigns on. So again, I think this will be a great introductory game for some of my buddies and board game enthusiasts. There's some really cool models that I can't wait to paint. Like this gargoyle is just awesome. And, they really didn't hold back. All right, so if you're on the fence about getting Dark Souls, especially if you're really into painting miniatures, into miniature games, I think these are pretty awesome models. Some fun sculpts in here. And, here again is just showing you the player character models are definitely not a heroic scale. I'll bring out what is it? I got a late Roman historical model here, and if you can see, yeah, it's on your normal historical scale with very realistic proportions to all the models. So, anyways, there is Dark Souls the board game. All right, this is just a core box. If you did kickstart it and you got all the stretch goals, I believe they're just sending them out as they make them. This was just to get people the board game as quick as they could, and they'll be sending out the rest of the materials as they produce them. So I'll be getting a ton more stuff. Like in the stretch goals, there's 4 or 5 more bosses and things. But there's just the initial board game. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do like and subscribe, and I will see you soon.